the wire services refused to transmit it to the newspapers. Then when I got back to the Hoover Institution in California, I was called into the office of the director, and I was told in no uncertain terms not to make any more speeches like that, and that this information should not be made public.
This was the information that we were giving the Soviet Union the technology to develop its war potential.
At that time, we were in Vietnam, and as you know, the Soviets were supplying the North Vietnamese.
This was 1972.
1972, yes. And for example, I knew that the Gorky plant, which was built by the Ford Motor Company, but the Gorky plant in Russia produces the Gaz series of vehicles. The Gaz vehicles had been seen on Ho Chi Minh's radar. We were supplying equipment to the Gorky plant in the middle of the Vietnamese War, and these trucks were being used to carry ammunition supplies, which were killing Americans. I thought this was morally wrong, and I said so in Miami Beach and at the Hoover Institution. And it was this type of information that was suppressed.
The rich would much rather we didn't think at all, and certainly not about the wise words of the columnist Kari Laine, who once famously said that the only reason we now have to live under kings and queens and presidents is that in past ages their ancestors were the best thieves. In the Middle Ages, when the king was feeling greedy and wanted to pay for a new mistress or brand new palace, he simply sent out his robber barons to steal half the herd of every local farmer, and if they complained, the robber barons would say the king needed to feed the army, or some similar excuse. That is how it was done then. But today, the ruling class face a different problem. We now live in an industrial age, and as George Orwell explained in his novel 1984, if the machine age was directed solely with the intention of making the common people physically comfortable, in a mega-productive, computer-controlled epoch, we could soon all live like millionaires. But think what this would mean. If we're all millionaires, we all fly first class, so the king and the queen and the president have to wait in a queue with everyone else. And do you honestly believe the Queen of England would wait in a queue behind you? If we're all millionaires, we all play golf. The king and the president can't get on the course, and there's no room on their exclusive beach. Orwell himself would have said the most important single sentence in 1984 was this one: if it once became general, wealth would confer no distinction. Our lords and masters are not going to wait in queues with the rest of us. So the special problem which fat cats face today is how to keep the wheels of industry turning, because as Orwell explains, the oligarchs have to make use of the masses without significantly raising the general standard of living. This is a more sophisticated age, so the robber barons need a more sophisticated means of stealing most of the wealth and of keeping most of the common people in poverty. What the rich face today is a situation in which the common people spend most of their lives on a 9-to-5 treadmill. They make things in factories, they grow things and harvest them, they teach in the schools, nurse in the hospitals, and as a result of their daily labours, a huge mountain of money is produced. Now the rulers have a problem. How can they keep the ordinary people hard at work so they're too exhausted at the end of every day to think about whether this is a fair system? The solution, as Sam Giancana explained, is to invent a foreign enemy, a boogeyman, who wants to conquer the whole world. This becomes a perfect excuse to make people pay for a sophisticated array of increasingly expensive weapons which are made by companies which the fat cats themselves own. And in one neat little scam, the modern robber baron has a means of stealing most of the wealth produced by Western society while leaving the common people with just enough crumbs to keep them going. Every year, America's oligarchs take $3 trillion out of the United States economy.
According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
2.3 trillion with a T. That's $8,000 for every man, woman, and child in America.
This is how the rich have rigged the system, so that it benefits them at the expense of everyone else all the time. But in order to keep this fraud going, the public must always be convinced of the need for military expenditure. This is where all the phony terrorism comes in. And if we want to find out who is behind this ongoing hoax, We only have to look at Securicom, the company in charge of World Trade Center security, who removed all guards and sniffer dogs from the buildings on September 10th, so that the charges which brought down the towers in controlled explosions could be planted. If we now ask, who is the chief of Securicom, who do we find? Marvin P. Bush, brother of George W. Bush, son of the man who orchestrated the plot to assassinate President Kennedy, and grandson of the man who made the family fortune from Auschwitz slave labour. The Bush family and their rich friends have been behind all of it. During his time as president, George W. Bush connived with Tony Blair to introduce a deliberate policy of allowing unbalanced and aggressive Muslims to flood into Western countries. They did this in the hope that they would commit atrocities in their adopted countries, and they were actually delighted when the Washington DC sniper and the Fort Hood shootings made headlines, because they knew such events would make it easier for the public to swallow the idea that 9/11 was simply more typical Islamic terrorism. The truth is that Islam is simply being used like a pawn on a chessboard in a game the fat cats have been playing since World War I. 70 years ago, they gave us what they called their Hitler Project. 50 years ago, it was the JFK Assassination Project. Today we're having to suffer the War on Terror Project. And when this current lunacy is over, they'll have another excuse ready to create yet another phony war and yet another patsy. If George Orwell was still alive today, and he was asked to comment upon all the significant political events of the last decade, it's quite likely he would simply restate the Orwellian definition of totalitarianism, to wit, a society living by and for continuous warfare, in which the ruling caste have ceased to have any real function but succeed in claiming to power through force and fraud, and then ask whether this sounds like the world we live in. Because it ought to be obvious by now that our seemingly endless economic recessions are being deliberately orchestrated. In today's world, the commodities markets are arranged in such a way that the price of virtually everything, particularly food, hardly ever changes. So how then can it be that the price of oil increased tenfold in the last decade? Economists are now tacitly agreeing that this was due to financialization, which is just a fancy way of saying rich creeps like the Bush family and their merchant banking friends used their trillionaire fortunes to rig the market. Why did they do this? Because great entrepreneurs like Stelios, with their budget air travel, had managed to break the cartel of the major airlines. Ordinary working families had begun living a jet-set lifestyle. The ruling elite of the entire world was simply terrified, because a jet-set lifestyle is supposed to be the exclusive preserve of the rich. What would happen to their social status if the whole world were part of the jet-set? So the rich arranged for the credit crunch, and now working families who used to fly 10 times a year can't even afford to use their car. What George Orwell understood better than anyone is that every age is basically the same. It is always a story in which a small elite group of greedy people cling to unjust power and privileges by practicing an ongoing deception upon their followers. Caesar did it with bread and circuses in the Roman arena. George Bush did it with false flag terrorism on 9/11. British newspapers have told their readers that the Queen of England is only the 10th richest person in the UK, with a fortune of 3 billion. But experts who have calculated her real wealth reckon that her ownership of 1/6 of all the land on planet Earth puts her true fortune nearer to 22 trillion. And they also estimate the true wealth of the Queen's merchant bankers, the Rothschilds, the people who started all of this greed by lending money to the Harrimans and the Morgans, to be at least 100 trillion. So finally, we have to ask, what is to be done about all this? For in the case of America, it is obvious that in order to honour the memory of President Kennedy, Americans are now duty-bound to finish his work by finally ending the worldwide tyranny of the CIA. The time has come for ordinary Americans to ask their strong men in uniform just exactly what and who they think they are defending. And they better not take too long about it. Having established Islam in the West in order to provide us with an enemy, the elite have recently started on the second phase of their master plan, which is to wipe out anyone who is sick or disabled. In Britain, this has been manifest in the Atos scandal, which has stopped all welfare payments to people with terminal illnesses and allowed invalids, who in some cases have no limbs, to starve to death. The extermination of anyone considered feeble-minded or infirm was exactly how the Nazi regime began, and now they've started doing it again. What most amazes me in all of this is the naivety of the good people in the truth movement, who go on and on and on saying they want an independent inquiry. The Bush family and their rich friends are not going to investigate themselves. And there isn't any authority on earth above that of the ruling class, so it's never going to happen. These people have got the police and the judges and the justice system completely under their control. The Queen of England cannot be prosecuted for anything, not even genocide, in a Crown Court, because the Crown Courts are hers. She owns British justice. The only way to change our corrupt system is through revolution. Everyone has to sign up to the Revolution Now website, and then the people have to march on Washington, just as they did for CIA agent Barack Obama's inauguration. Only this time they need to kick him and every other crooked politician out and take power genuinely for the people's sake. And once again, they better not take too long about it, because the last time the rich decided to play a really big trick on the world, 6 million lives were extinguished. Supposing they decide to give us the world's first incidence of phony nuclear terrorism by dropping an atomic bomb on Cleveland or Birmingham or on Chicago, what then? But perhaps Chicago itself might be a good place to pause and offer a word of warning to the citizens of the United States before they start thinking about the next American Revolution. We should always remember that Al Capone was seen as a hero by the ordinary working people of his own time, because he gave them what they wanted: booze, sex, gambling and drugs. And some Americans have even been candid enough to admit this.
We all play numbers, we all go to the racetrack, you know what I mean? We all cheat a little bit.
It hardly needs saying that Giancana, Marcello and Trafficante would have gone out of business in no time if ordinary Americans hadn't been so fond of cocaine. And in the post-war period, many writers have noted the way in which the United States not only manifestly tolerated organised crime, but even seemed to be enchanted by it. It's a cultural phenomenon which has led many foreigners to wonder whether there is some sort of latent criminality in the very fabric of American society, because there does seem to be some sort of tacit agreement amongst all Americans that killing a man should always be considered an option if it looks as if he might cost you a large sum of money.
Suppose we'll have to kill him. I don't suppose you have any ideas on that, Diana.
Well, what would you fellas say to an assassination?
I hope you don't have any hidden tape machines in this office, Frank.
We're talking about a capital crime here.
I'd like to hear some more opinions on that.
Look, I don't see we have any option, Frank. Let's kill the son of a bitch.
This film is likely to leave Americans with the impression that JFK was assassinated by a corrupt and brutal ruling class. Perhaps they should ask themselves if they are quite sure that he wasn't simply killed by America. So it seems that finally we are left with a very simple question. What kind of society is it which kills its own best men?
todistamaan sinun ja vanhempieni pieni mainon minua kohtaan. Esimerkiksi Arja ja Niina todistavat, että olet soittanut heille ja haukkunut huoriksi ja onkioiksi. Pertti Honkanen todistaa, miten vanhempani ovat hänelle syöttäneet minusta hyvin paksua valhetta. Sinun ja vanhempieni vainosta huolimatta olen oman alani tietäjä. Lisäksi, mikä sinulta ei ole ikinä onnistunut, on oman yrityksen perustaminen ja sen kannattava myynti. Olet vain joku farmaseutin retale. Lisäksi olet pieni tuloinen, koska oikeusaputoimisto maksoi sinun nostamasi kanteet minua kohtaan tammikuun 8. päivä. Etkä edes tullut oikeuteen. Ne sinun ja vanhempieni nostamat kanteet maksoivat minulle yli 10 000 euroa ja en aio unohtaa sitä, vaan tulen ne tavalla tai toisella perimään sinulta. Olet jo käytännössä tuhoutunut. Minä olen vuosia yrittänyt hieroa sovintoa meidän perheen sisällä. Siitäkin minulla on näyttöä. Et sille. Lisäksi vanhemmat
ovat siirtäneet sinulle lahjoituksena omaisuutta, kuten syntymätilani, hakkasit törkeästi kaikki puut sileäksi ja raiskasit paikan saaksesi lahjaveron. Minulla on kaikki paperit hommasta ja odotan vain, että faija kuolee ja sinulla on elämäsi sotku käsissäsi. Lisäksi on menossa asioita, jotka hakevat oikeutta niille lukemattomille ihmisille, jotka on sun toimesta suljettu mielisairaalaan, niin kuin te teitte minulle. Minulla oli vain apuja, että pääsin ulos teidän rakentamasta vainosta minua kohtaan. Ja näet unta, jos kuvittelet selviäväsi tilanteesta toimittamalla minun pakkohoitoon. Se aika on ohi. Te teitte kiinteistössä asumisen mahdottomaksi jatkuvalla vainolla. Eli tämä on täyttä potaskaa ja valhetta. En voinut asua kiinteistössä teidän vainon takia, niin miksi sitten olisin maksanut mitään? Minun talouteni tuhoutui siihen, kun minua jatkuvasti teidän valheellisten ilmoitusten perusteella poliisin toimesta haettiin pakkohoitoon. Siitä on kaikki todisteet, äänitteitä ja videoita. Olette tuhonneet perheeni, terveyteni, maineeni sekä elämäni. Onneksi tiedän, mitä teille tapahtuu, joten oikeus tapahtuu. Talon myynti onnistuu aivan normaalisti. Olen sanonut, että 180 000 on hyväksyttävä ja edullinen hinta ostajalle. Tarjouduin itse ostamaan puolikkaan 50 000, jonka muka isäni sanoi, että hän suostuu. No, ei suostunut viime viikolla. Pelaatte peliä tarkoituksena tuhota minut, mutta koska minulla on Jumala puolellani, olette jo hävinneet. Se tulee olemaan. Mitä vittua? Tulee. Mitä nyt? Jotain merkkiä. Se tulee olemaan mielenkiintoista. Legion Anonymous Finland kansallis sosialistinen puolue Mikä? Soldiers of Odin. Suojeluskunta. Mä nyt laitan tähän liitteeksen, mistä mä löydän sen, että tekstit omat muistiinpanot. Asiakirjoituksia. Ei. Vittu, mä ulkoinen torrentista. Se on semmoinen pienen sähköposti. Omat kirjoitukset. Joo, siinä se on. Tossa. Vittu, tuo tuli tuon tielle. Noin. Sitten mä haluan tähän lisää osoitteita. Tuohon kohtaan. CTS. Mä haluan sen CTS. Ei. Ei. No, se on tosta. Copy. Tohon. Liitä. Okei, sitten eduskunta. Fuck. Toi. Copy. Tuohon. Katsotaan mitä tapahtuu. Okei. Sitten mä haluan se ja sen tekin. Kokoomus. Sui toi. Tää on se CD ja Sentek. Copy. Niitä. Okei, sit mä haluan sen seurakunta. Forssa. Okei. Jutas. Onks mä ton laittanut? Taisin laittaa seurakunta. Onks toi? Ei. Onks toi? Mitä? tossa pois. Okei, jos mä nyt... Pysäytä lähetys. Mulla on lähetys päällä. Okei, sori ihmiset, ei ollut tarkoitus. Nyt katsotaan hyvä video. Katsotaan hyvä video. Se oli tämä Illuminatiin. Anteeksi, kun mä tuossa vietin lähetyksen päälle, kun mä täällä sähköpostia laittelen. Ihan sama. Ei mulla ole mitään salaisuuksia.
Since the dawn of civilization, the powerful have conspired to twist the course of history to suit their own designs. Like puppeteers, a few shadowy figures could still be pulling the strings of destiny for billions. Those who cry conspiracy are usually mocked at, for sometimes the truth is so obvious it goes unnoticed. Are those merely paranoid fantasies cooked up to feed the appetite of paperback readers and web surfers, but which bear no relation to reality? Or are we living out some perfectly executed plan? Wars, revolutions, social movements, terrorist attacks. Everything is given an official explanation. But perhaps nothing is what it seems to be. Let's dare to unveil the incredible world. Since the dawn of civilization, the powerful have conspired to twist the course of history to suit their own designs. Like puppeteers, a few shadowy figures could still be pulling the strings of destiny for billions. Those who cry conspiracy are usually mocked at, but sometimes the truth is so obvious it goes unnoticed. Are those merely paranoid fantasies cooked up to feed the appetite of paperback readers and web surfers, but which bear no relation to reality? Or are we living out some perfectly executed plan? Wars, revolutions, social movements, terrorist attacks. Everything is given an official explanation. But perhaps nothing is what it seems to be. Let's dare to unveil the incredible world of secret societies.
Of all the secret societies we know of, there is one that stands out from the rest due to certain characteristics that make it especially menacing. Its treacherous tenets, the scandal and the paranoia they've unleashed. More disturbing, the suspicion that since its creation, it has intervened in each and every major world event that has steered the course of history. The Illuminati of Bavaria, the most fearsome secret society in history. More than 200 years ago, here in Germany, in what used to be the electorate of Bavaria, a secret society was formed whose objective simply spelled world domination. Its strategy to abolish all religions and governments in order to take control of humanity under a unified state, with no countries, no borders, and under the command of a single leader. Its name? The Illuminati of Bavaria. Perhaps you've never heard of them, or perhaps you have, and are familiar with some of the theories that blame them for all the bad things that have befallen us. Theories that intertwine, verifiable facts with delirious conspiracy theories that run the gamut from the United States to aliens, but have a common thread in the founding tenet of the Illuminati, the creation of a new world order. And perhaps, and only perhaps, that great jumble of information and disinformation that today pervades the media is also part of a broader, sinister plan.
The Order of the Illuminati was officially prescribed more than 200 years ago. But if we pay close attention to subsequent events, we shall find an alarming succession of coincidences that suggest strongly that they are still among us, and that their power, far from having waned, is still very much in evidence.
To find out just how much is fact and how much is fiction, we shall start off by learning what history has to tell us about this mysterious order. Then we shall investigate what has happened since the order's demise. Finally, we shall draw our own conclusions.
On May the 1st, 1776, Adam Weishaupt, a young canon law professor at the University of Bavaria, founded the Order of the Perfectibilists, also known as the Illuminati of Bavaria. Though it was influenced by the Illuminist trends of the time, the name of the order was inspired by the Spanish Alumbrados and the French Illuminés, old Gnostic sects that upheld the communion of man and God without the intermediation of the Church. Initially, the stated objectives of the Illuminati seemed entirely harmless and philanthropic. To stimulate a human and sociable vision, support virtue where it may be threatened or oppressed by vice, to promote the progress of merit-worth people and foster the benefit of those deprived of education. Adam Weishaupt.
Little is known of Adam Weishaupt, but he was undoubtedly a mysterious man. Even his name has given rise to speculation. Adam Weishaupt, in German, can be broken down into Adam, the first man, Weis, knowledge, or wisdom, Haupt, leader. That is to say, the first man that leads the wise, an entirely fitting name to define his role in the order he established and in the sinister plans he propounded.
Adam Weishaupt was born in Ingolstadt, Bavaria, in the south of Germany in 1748. A convert from Judaism, he was raised and educated by Jesuits. A precocious intellectual, at the age of 28, he was Dean of the Jesuit University of Canon Law at Ingolstadt. In spite of his apparent religious fervour and Catholic zeal, Weishaupt was obsessed with ancient Egyptian rites and rituals, and at the same time he also maintained regular contact with Freemasons, the historic enemies of the Catholic Church. Like many thinkers of that era, he admired Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who insisted that man was noble and free by nature, and could be governed without the need for religious or established institutions. The only practice that one ought to teach children is that they should never submit to one. Jean-Jacques Rousseau.
The Illuminati were created within a Masonic lodge to which Weishaupt belonged. By that time, Freemasonry was already a prestigious secret society of long standing, and its excessive secrecy and closeness to the powers that be had turned it into the ideal nurturing ground for Weishaupt's order, who began to infiltrate it. The Freemasons, good keepers of secrets, would contribute knowingly or otherwise to the Illuminati plan.
For his order, Weishaupt borrowed the strict, military-style hierarchical structure of the Jesuits and divided it into 13 degrees. First level, nursery, preparation, novice, Minerval, Illuminatus minor. Second level, Freemasonry, subdivided into 2 orders, Symbolic Apprentice, Fellow of the Craft, Master Freemason, and Scottish, Illuminatus Major, and Illuminatus Dirigens. Third level, Mysteries, subdivided into 2 orders, Lesser Mysteries, Priest and Regent, and Greater Mysteries, Magus, Rex, and king, or Areopagite.
Curiously enough, the order was an incomplete structure. There were many minables, but the higher hierarchies were never completely filled, and they only existed in Weishaupt's mind, who proclaimed himself king, or Areopagite.
Up until the year 1780, the Order of the Illuminati was only known within the boundaries of Bavaria. With the inclusion of Baron Neely, an enthusiastic Freemason reformer, new recruits flooded in. New academies for the Nervals were established and strict codes for secrecy enforced. The novices, or Minervals, did not know anyone in the order other than their instructor. If, after 3 years as Minervals, they were chosen to continue their training, they went on to become Illuminatus Minor, and were permitted to know a little more about the real objectives of the order.
Weishaupt designed for his order a complex system of codes and aliases that seemed to pre-announce a strategy that would allow them to continue working underground sometime in the future. The Illuminati became a true secret society within another, that is, within Freemasonry itself. It soon became clear that the true objectives of Weishaupt and his Illuminati went far beyond simple altruism.
The order was symbolized as a letter O with a dot in the center. Everyone assumed pseudonyms inspired by Roman and Greek history. Adam Weishaupt, Spartacus; Baron Neely, Philo; Franz Xavier Zouak, Cato; Marquis of Constanza, Diomedes, and so on. Cities and regions also received coded Hellenic names: Munich, Athens; Frankfurt, Thebes; Bavaria, Greece. Letters were coded with numbers in the lower degrees, and with hieroglyphics in the high degrees.
Just 7 years after he had founded his order, Adam Weishaupt boasted of having more than 600 followers in Bavaria alone, and many more in the rest of Europe. The order attracted influential people, including nobles and members of the clergy.
Paradoxically, active members of the Catholic Church could be found in the ranks of the Illuminati. Perhaps these recruits were open-minded members of the clergy who had been attracted by the order's modernizing and humanistic views. But it seems equally likely that the Catholic Church had decided to infiltrate the order in order to learn more about its true objectives. If this were the case, the results were soon plain to see.
The order of the Illuminati spread across Europe like wildfire, and soon the powers that be, the Catholic Church and Freemasonry itself, tried to put a limit to its expansion. Adam Weishaupt went into exile and worked underground. His secret trials exposed and his true motives discovered. But the Brotherhood had already dispersed, and all its branches were prepared to act anonymously and in utmost secrecy.
The Order of the Illuminati had officially ceased to exist in Bavaria, Prussia, and the other domains of which is now modern Germany. But perhaps their disappearance was little more than a charade. After all, a secret society is born to act in the shadows, and when it is discovered, it must die in order to go on living.
The order itself could perish, but not its objectives. The Illuminati fire had started, and it would be unstoppable.
To return to man his fundamental rights of equality and liberty, we should begin by destroying every religion and every civil society, and finish abolishing property. Adam Weishaupt. The secret society, known as the Order of the Illuminati, rose in the late 18th century. It was not the first secret society, and it would not be the last. but its name would always remain a magnet for conspiracy theorists who maintain that it is still active among us today.
5 years after the Order of the Illuminati was created, Baron Adolf Knigge joined its ranks. He was the man behind its fast expansion and its attempt to infiltrate all of Freemasonry. Knigge, a bankrupt nobleman, a Freemason, a scholar and an occultist, found that Weishaupt and his Illuminati gave a new sense of purpose to his life.
Knigge joined the Order and worked for the Illuminati cause with fervour and conviction. In very little time, he was able to infiltrate most of the major Freemasonry lodges, with the exception of the English and Scottish ones, which, perhaps due to their conservatism, rejected Knigge's liberal ideas.
But barely 4 years after joining the Order, Baron Knigge left, accusing Weishaupt of being a tyrant filled with delusions of grandeur, a megalomaniac that had deceived his own followers by claiming that the Order had an ancient origin, when in fact it was a new cult tailor-made for his own personal glory. The events that followed would vindicate Knigge's charge. The innocent and charitable Order of the Illuminati had deceitful objectives, and now, thanks to Knigge's contribution, it also had the capacity to achieve them.
A short time after Knigge's desertion, Bavaria was buzzing with rumours that a certain secret order was aiming to put an end to established order and organised religion, and to create a new world order under a single unified government. This information could only have come from either Knigge himself or from those Jesuit infiltrators who had certainly witnessed strange initiation rites.
A great deal has been said about the rituals of secret societies. The Illuminati were no exception. Perhaps the Jesuits who witnessed them decided it was time to act up. As a result of their testimony, the Catholic Church forced the Elector of Bavaria to ban the order.
There were 3 rooms. In the last one there was a richly decorated red throne. On the other side there was a table with a red tablecloth, upon which lay the garments of the regent, a white leather cuirass, the red cross, and a white cloak with another red cross. The candidate walks across this room dressed like a slave, chains hanging from his hands. And the regents say, "Stop, only free men can enter." And the defenders respond, "He is free, he has fled from his oppressors to join the Brotherhood." The room was red and brightly lit. The provincial was seated on the throne, and the other regents were in the middle room. The first room was black. It was used for the preparation of the novice, and in the centre upon a platform there was a human skeleton, at whose feet lay a crown and sword. What do you think of these sad spoils? Was he a nobleman or a peasant? The correct thing to do was not to answer. The candidate received the explanation. The human condition is the only thing that matters. After that, the candidate took the oath. From a distance, these rituals seem to be rather naive, and Weishaupt's objectives unobtainable, even risible. But if we continue to analyse the historical events that followed, our laughter might turn to a horrible grimace. In 1783, 4 professors of the Marianis Academy were interrogated at a court of law on account of their belonging to the order. All eventually admitted that the Illuminati abjured Christianity, defended sensual pleasures, liberty, equality, and the right to commit suicide.
The confession was made public and caused a tremendous uproar. How much had the heretics infiltrated the society? What was the reach of their plans for world domination? Who really were these enemies of church and state?
The Elector of Bavaria intended to eradicate this evil as he perceived it, and passed a law prohibiting every kind of secret meeting, a measure that, unfairly or not, affected all of Freemasonry. Finally, by means of another law, he banned the Illuminati altogether. In 1786, the home of Illuminati lawyer von Zwack was raided, and various papers and correspondence seized.
There was a freak offenders seal destiny of the Illuminati, a bizarre accident that will be taken advantage of by the...
Täytyy käydä kusella.
By the critics of the order and used to deal them a fatal blow.
On July the 10th, 1785, a mysterious man rode swiftly out of the skies of Bavaria. He was the apostate Abbot Lance, a friend and personal envoy of Adam Weishaupt and an Illuminati. He never reached his destination. A lightning bolt struck him dead, leaving behind only his charred corpse. Curiously, the papers that he carried were not affected by the fire. When the authorities went through his sack, they found letters and documents that further incriminated the members of the order. Thus Weishaupt could not avoid the disclosure of his true objectives, together with confidential information about his order's most important members. His plans for world domination and the abolition of the state, religion and private property, all penned in his very own handwriting, had come to light. Thus began the Illuminati panic, never to end.
The episode of the lightning-struck rider sealed the fate for the Illuminati. Their world seemed to be coming to an end, but the facts that followed showed that in spite of these setbacks, Weishaupt's influence remained in full force and made him practically untouchable.
In 1785, Weishaupt was dismissed from his university. and expelled from Bavaria. Amazingly, instead of sending him to prison, the authorities offered him a compensation payment of 800 florins per year, which he rejected. Weishaupt went into exile, avowing that the order would return 10 times more powerful. Whether or not he kept his word is still a matter for speculation.
Bearing in mind the charges that were levied against them, the lightness of the sentences passed is quite suspicious. Some even had the good fortune to be compensated with ready money. Perhaps the order already had enough political and economic leverage to press on the authorities. The fact is that their enforced exile had an unwanted consequence: the dispersion of the Illuminati to the four corners of the globe.
Adam Weishaupt found a safe haven in Regensburg, where he published a pamphlet in which he clarified the charitable principles of the order. He then took up residence in Gotha, whose duke was an Illuminatus. The official story says that he abandoned all political activity and made his peace with the Catholic Church. Thereafter to lead a tranquil life, far removed from conspiracies.
Such a luxurious and peaceful exile strikes as a suspiciously serene end for the leading conspirator of his time. It is reasonable to suppose that Weishaupt could have kept on working despite his low profile. And even if his retirement had been genuine, the order of the Illuminati already had a life of its own, as would soon be detected during the one episode that shook Western civilization the most and laid the groundwork for a true new world order: the French Revolution.
During its heyday, the Order of the Illuminati had extended its tentacles of influence to France. There it recruited, among others, Frederick the Dietrich, the Mayor of Strasbourg, Mirabeau, the politician, and the Duke of Orleans, who recruited followers to the Parisian Freemasonry lodges. The strength of our order lies in its secrecy. It should never appear anywhere under its own name, but always shrouded in another name and another occupation. Adam Weishaupt. The connection between the Illuminati and the Jacobins during the French Revolution of 1789 was denounced by one of the order's most fervent detractors, Abbot Augustin Barruel. Likewise, the Scottish Freemason, author John Robison, devoted a long and verbose chapter of his work to what he regarded as the Illuminati's influence on the revolution. Robison maintained that Weishaupt and the Club of the Illuminati, together with the Club of the Jacobins, controlled the National Assembly, and from Paris ruled all of France.
One wonders if the Illuminati acted in good faith, seeking to free the French from royal oppression, or if the revolution was merely a convenient vehicle for its plans for creating a new world order, free from monarchy and religion, but under their control.
Little more is known about the order, since all the files related to it were conveniently destroyed during Allied bombing of German cities during the Second World War.
Who were the Illuminati? Heroes fighting for liberty and reason, or demented tyrants who sought to enslave the world? The answer has as many facets as there are ways of interpreting history, and the truth is that time has not helped to solve the enigma.
A short time before its apparent disbanding, the Order of the Illuminati had lodges in more than 25 European cities, from Munich to London, including Vienna, Paris, and Naples. Pretty soon its name became associated with other illustrious names, and powerful clans and families that to this day decide.
No moi! En mä tiedä, mä en oo koittanut soittaa sitä. Ei oo. Ei oo täällä, että kun mä odotan sitä tänne. Se ei vastaa. No mä yritän soittaa sen kanssa. Okei, moi. No moi. Kun mä yritin soittaa Arjalle, niin se ei edes hälytä.
Joo, siis mulla soitettiin silleen, että se ei välillä hälytä. Välillä se ilmoittaa, että tätä liittymää ei ole olemassa. Ja sitten välillä se menee eteenpäin, mutta se menee vastaajaan. Et sillä on varmaan nyt huono kontakti siinä puhelimessa.
Okei. No me sovittiin Arjen kanssa, että tulee tänne tänään, mutta ei sitä ole vielä näkynyt.
Okei, no ei mitään. Ei mulla ollut mitään hirveän ihmeellistä, mutta se vaan ruikuttanut vähän.
Ai se... No ruikuta mulle! Mitä sulla on ruikuttanut?
No kun mulla on yksi kurssi, mitä mä oon käynyt ja mä oon istunut kaikilla tunneilla.
Joo.
Mä oon lukenut ja aina tunnilla oli tekstit, mitä pitää lukea. Se on englanninkieliset, niitä oli joku 500 sivua, lukenut kaikki ne aina.
Joo.
Mä oon tyyliin vaikka joku 60 sivua niin tunti.
Joo.
decide the destiny of the world.
Here is where the official history ends and the tracks of the Illuminati disappear. Adam Weishaupt died in 1830, apparently removed from any secret activity. But people noticed that the Illuminati plan for world domination coincided suspiciously with many of the events that apparently arose naturally by the will of the people.
Princes and nations will disappear without violence from the earth. The human race will become one family, and the world the abode of reasonable men. Adam Weishaupt. Up until its apparent dissolution in 1790, the Order of the Illuminati boasted members in all the important European cities. The Catholic Church's attempt to root out and destroy the Order, and the political persecution of its most important leaders had precisely the opposite effect of what was intended. The Illuminati were scattered to the four winds, and in the shadows they moved like fish in water.
Even after the apparent dismissal of the Order, there were many who doubted that they had really ceased to operate. Their infiltration had been so widespread that every Freemason could now be suspected of being an undercover Illuminati. So the whole of Freemasonry was proscribed, and there was more to come. The Order's reputation quickly spread to the New World. Books by Abbot Augustine Barruel and John Robison alerting the world to the imminent Illuminati peril were published in the recently founded United States, generating panic among their readers. The paranoia had crossed the Atlantic.
In 1776, the year in which Weishaupt founded his order and began to infiltrate Freemasonry, the United States declared its independence. Many of its founding fathers were Freemasons. It is not known if some of them were subsequently recruited by the Illuminati. What is known is that many American religious communities felt threatened by the freedom of worship guaranteed by the new Constitution, which they denounced as part of an Illuminati conspiracy. In 1798, when the second President of the USA, John Adams, established May the 9th as a day of fasting and worship, to implore the heavens' mercy and blessing for the imperiled nation, fingers were pointed at the order founded by Weishaupt, and a wave of panic flowed across New England. We should strive to do all we possibly can to endeavour the advance of the Illuminati in all important public positions. Adam Weishaupt. In Boston, Reverend Jedediah Morse dedicated his sermons to the Illuminati threat. The media echoed his words, but no firm evidence of Illuminati conspiracy was ever uncovered.
An immensely vast, rich and potentially powerful country where the practice of Freemasonry was widespread and accepted was certainly a fertile land in which to sow the Illuminati seed. Up to what point was the Illuminati panic of New England exclusively based on absurd conspiracy theories promoted by zealous religious leaders?
It was none other than Thomas Jefferson who, after reading Abbot Barruel, came out in defense of Adam Weishaupt. In 1800, Jefferson wrote to his friend Madison, "Adam Weishaupt believes in the indefinite perfectibility of man. He thinks he may in time be rendered so perfect that he will be able to govern himself in every circumstance, so as to injure none, and to do all the good he can, to leave government no occasion to exercise their powers over him, and of course to render political government useless. This, you know, is not far removed from our own ideals." Jefferson's main opponents, the Federalist Party, founded by Alexander Hamilton, proclaimed that Jefferson, as well as the Democratic Republican Party, were all controlled by the Illuminati. Nothing was ever proven. Jefferson's party is the forerunner of the Democrats and Republican parties that today take turns to govern the USA.
The Illuminati paranoia faded out in the 19th century, but almost 100 years later it was reborn, stronger than ever.
In the early 20th century, English right-wing writer Nestor Webster stated without offering any proof that since 1786 a lodge of the Order of the Illuminati had become established in Virginia and 14 other American cities. According to her, this had given rise to a hidden theocracy of Jews, Kabbalists, Masons, anarchists, Illuminati, occultists, and heretics. With her ignorance and racism, Nestor Webster contributed to a renewal of interest in the order she manifestly abhorred, and formally introduced anti-Semitism as an important element in conspiracy theorizing.
Sadly, no conspiracy theory is worth its salt if it does not include the Jews in it. The writings of Nestor Webster may have stoked the flames, but the fact remains that long before that, and long after, theories of world domination have always included economic power, especially international banking, an activity that is often exclusively and mistakenly attributed to Jews. And the Illuminati conspiracy was no exception.
Many authors of supposedly serious history books uphold the idea that international banking is in the hands of the Illuminati Jews, who for centuries have financed both sides fighting wars in order to create anarchy and chaos, a state of affairs that would, in their view, inevitably lead to a new world order, which the Illuminati would come to control. The bête noire of these conspiracy buffs is the Rothschild clan, immensely powerful and conveniently Jewish. History tells us something different. The only connection between the Rothschild clan and the Illuminati is that the patriarch of the Rothschild clan, Amson, had, among many other clients, Prince William of Hesse, who seems to have been one of the first members of the Order of the Illuminati. Though it's true that the Rothschilds, in common with almost all European bankers, financed wars and revolutions, this activity, though morally questionable, does not constitute evidence that they were world conspirators or Illuminati.
There is no proven connection between Jews and the Illuminati. However, in the early 20th century, another English writer, Lady Queensborough, proclaimed and denounced the existence of a global conspiracy in which Jews and the Illuminati played a key role. Her books, though poorly researched and devoid of proper evidence, were widely read at the time, a period which we should not forget coincided with the rise of Adolf Hitler and the slaughter of 6 million European Jews, among other victims.
In spite of the conspiracy theories that link Judaism, international banking, world domination, and the Illuminati, Weishaupt himself wrote, "Jews, pagans, women, monks, and members of other societies are excluded from the order." The vast majority of Illuminati were Christians by birth. Many of them were drawn from the nobility, and were even clergymen. Women and Jews were only to be accepted in separate lodges and academies. In spite of this, it has frequently been claimed that the protocols of the learned elders of Zion, an anti-Semitic rant drawn up by the Russian Tsar's secret police, is in reality the literal transcription of a discussion of Illuminati Congress, where a group of Jews outlined plans to take over the world. Adolf Hitler used this libel to stoke hatred against the Jews, and even denounced the Jewish Masonic conspiracy. The curious thing is that many of the very same authors and conspiracy hunters who attack Jews and Freemasons do not hesitate to accuse Hitler himself as a covert Illuminatus, together with Stalin and Marx, and finally end up putting in the same bag Marxists, Bolsheviks, bankers, Jews and Nazis, a decidedly unlikely mix.
Jews have not been the only ones to be singled out. The Illuminati have also been linked to a larger or lesser degree with whatever bogeyman persecution mania the human mind can concoct. Terrorists, demons, even extraterrestrials. and it is here where information blurs into disinformation.
In 1976, a writer named Des Griffin tried to revive the belief that the origin of the Illuminati is the rebellion of the Lord's angels and the expulsion of Lucifer. The name Lucifer means him who brings light, just as the word Illuminati means the illuminated. A thesis that not even Weishaupt himself could have dreamt up. Other authors believe that the Illuminati obsession with power can be traced to our reptilian brain, the brainstem that controls our impulses, and in some few incoherent sentences conclude that the Illuminati are galactic reptiles disguised as human beings. A search on the internet for the words New World Order produces more than 1,400 million web pages, most of dubious content.